Respected Prince of Tanjavur, Raja Shivaji Raje, Shri Vikram Singh Mohite ji, the higher inheritor of legacy that you just saw of Hambirao Mohite, whose musical recitation we are going to listen after this, Shri Ganesh ji, a person who brought us, all of us together, Bharat Gopu, all the trustees of this Maharashtra Mandal of Chennai, Shri Arvind Datar and all his team members, and brothers and sisters. After Vikram Singh ji elaborated on southern expedition, and in Maharashtra and in Marathi literature, it is a very popular way to say that it was a Dakshin Digvijay. So victory over south. But if I see from Chhatrapati Shivaji's vision, it was not victory over south, it was liberation of south from the external forces. He knew very well that whether Adil Shahi, Nizam Shahi, Qutub Shahi, perhaps one person who had the sense of the significance and importance of Vijayanagar Samrajya was Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. I would just start with a quote, and I'm deliberately starting with a quote by none other than Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And it is always, when people start disputing about what was the actual vision and mission of the Arab, I generally don't call it just a Muslim invasion. Because most of the Muslims in India also start believing that they came from outside, which is a myth. They are the victims of invasion by ATM, Arab, Turks and Mongols. So, in modern times, just at the just before independence, if one person who articulated what was the mission behind this ATM invasion was Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. In 1940, he wrote a book on called Thoughts on Pakistan, and he revised that in 1945, where he says these invasions were not undertaken merely out of lust for loot or conquest. There was another object behind them. The expedition against Sindh by Muhammad bin Qasim was of a punitive character and was undertaken to punish Raja Dahir of Sindh, who had refused to make restitution for the seizure of an Arab ship at Debul, one of the seaport towns of Sindh. What Dr. Ambedkar said further is most important sentence of modern history. There is no doubt that striking a blow at the idolatry and polytheism of Hindus and establishing Islam in India was one of the most important aims of this expedition, which we cannot ignore. Before Ambedkar, if somebody who fought against this ideology, I am not talking about the individuals, against ideology. Before Shivaji, there were many people who fought against Islamic invasion. Right from Dahir to Guru Gobind Singh, they fought the battles against Arab, Turk and Mongol invasion. But the difference between them and Shivaji was, Shivaji fought them on the basis of ideology. He was very clear what is the force of aggression and what is the counter to it. And his southern expedition and visiting Kalikambaal Temple should be seen in that light. On 6th of June, 1774, the historic day when the coronation took place, as per the Hindu calendar, Jyeshtha Shuddha Trayodashi, the 13th day of month of Jyeshtha. That coronation ceremony, as Vikram Singh ji rightly pointed out, was not an ordinary event of history. As Savarkar called it, it was a golden epoch of Indian history. The formation of Hindu Patapatashahi was not just some king was being coronated. It was the idea being coronated. The idea of Swaraj being coronated. The background that Vikram Singh ji presented was, at one level, there was a continuous aggression. There was a continuous resistance. There was loot and plunder on the one hand, but forceful convergence and destruction of temples on the other hand. Relatively, this part of Bharat is lucky, the south of Vindhyas, because the impact of this ATM invasion could be realized only at the time of Tipu Sultan. So from 8th century to almost 17th century, the northern part continuously faced invasion from the northwestern corner. But I always, especially while going to the institutions, schools and colleges, I always insist students just to keep a map in front of them, the world map. And just draw lines. Who started when and invaded where? Vikram Singh ji presented one part of it. That is the invasions of Arabs and Turks and Mongols. How Islam spread. But you take the other part of it. In the name of European colonialism, the way missionaries spread. And if you take the global context, anywhere, no civilization could sustain this onslaught for more than 70 years. The only probable exception is Spain, where after becoming 99% Islamic, it reverts back to Christianity. That is the only exception. Bharat is the only civilization from 1712 to 15th August 1947, there was not a single day when there was no attempt to finish this civilization, and still there was no single movement where there was no resistance, and after almost more than 1200 years of continuous resistance, on 15th of August, we started a new journey to reinvent ourselves on ancient edifice for modern achievements. That is the significance of this particular event. Because that event allowed us to cherish that idea of Swaraj. It was not for just self-rule. It was not just for having a king of our skin and our color. That sense of belongingness to this land, that sense of belongingness to this culture, that sense of belongingness to this idea of Bharat. You know, many people, it is fashionable to call, we have diverse cultures. Really? Do we have diverse cultures, or we have a unique culture that celebrates diversity?
Absolutely.
And if we have a unique culture that celebrates diversity, it was Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj who understand this uniqueness of idea of Bharat. That's why, while starting from there, he had Hindavi Swarajya in mind, and while coming to Tanjavur or Kalikambaal Temple, for him, he was not coming to the foreign land. Wherever he went, his orders were very clear that the common man should not be exploited, forceful taxation should not be taken place, temple activities should not be disturbed. People should feel that they are liberated. Now this idea was very new, because since the time of Mughals coming from actually especially Khilji's time or even Kutubuddin Aibak time, we have lost that confidence, self-belief that we can be ruled by ourselves. And the biggest exploitation was done about this psychology was perhaps by the British. But it was Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj who reignited this idea that this land is unique and we have right to rule our own land with our own ethos, with our own cultural traditions, and that protecting this is our dharma. That idea was rekindled by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Now, as I said, why it was an epoch-making moment? Why it was so special? One part is, of course, he got it himself coronated. The idea of Rajasuya Yajna was, kind of accepted. Many other kings accepted his suzerainty, so started paying taxes. He came up with his own coin, his own logo. All these things symbolically were very important. But there was something much beyond that. And we need to see those things in perspective. Earlier presentation talked about the role of Chhatrapati Rajaram or Maharani Tarabai, or for that matter even later up to Peshwas, up to 1818, or why 1818? Up to 1857. You take parallels globally. There can be many, but I will just cite two examples. The first was, I don't know why he is called great, but Alexander, at least for Bharat, he should not be called great because he lost on the land of Bharat. He could not cross Indus, and that's why he had to go back. And the moment he lost, within 4 months, while going back, he died, and he died not because he fought in the battle. He died because he went into depression, because the moment he lost, after creating entire Greek empire, his expedition got halted on the land of Indus, Sindhu river, and while going back within 4 months, psychologically, mentally, his own people disbanded him, refused to take orders from him. And he couldn't take it. And that was perhaps one of the biggest reasons that Alexander lost his life. Take the example in modern context of Napoleon. Napoleon was winning battles after battles. Of course, he was a great warrior. But when Waterloo happened, what changed after that? The great warrior, the great commander, Napoleon the Great, his own people suggested him, better you surrender, otherwise we are not going to take your orders. One battle loss, and Napoleon was finished. And here is the person who gave up his entire kingdom. He went up to Agra fort. Aurangzeb imprisoned him. There was nothing to fall back. He escaped from there with his son, coming back to Maharashtra via Odisha, Ujjain, and there is no single place where people came and protected him, stood by him, and after coming back, he again reorganized his common people, restart building his army, restart rekindling his idea of Swaraj, and people are still ready to fight. It didn't stop there. Remember, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj died in 1680. So few years after his coronation. But in the name of Chhatrapati, people are fighting even in 1857. For them, it was not just Rajaram, it was not just Shahuji Maharaj, it was not just Peshwas. It was the idea of Chhatrapati and his vision of Swaraj that inspired 200 years after his death. Tell me a single historical occasion of any warrior who inspired for 200 years after. Why 200 years? If we take the legacy of Tilak and Savarkar, even our freedom struggle and the idea of Swaraj was inspired by Shivaji. Otherwise, why Lokmanya Tilak, thought of starting celebrating Shivaji birth anniversary as a festival? He realized that, if I can't organize political activities due to British laws, Indian psyche is to celebrate the cultural activities. And there can be no better person. In this land, I don't want to get into controversy, but there are people who, want to follow the legacy of Babur and Aurangzeb and finish the Sanatana. But, the point is, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, in every action of his, was giving a clear message of our nationhood. He was not just talking about Raj. He was not talking about himself. He was talking about Swa of that Raj. What is that self that needs to be protected? He was very clear about that. And that's why when he said, Kshatriya Kulavatansa Go Brahmana Pratipalaka, his idea about his kingdom was very clear. And that is why there is another reference that we need to talk about. And many people do not understand the, significance of his conversation, exchange of letters with Mirza Raja Jai Singh. Mirza Raja Jai Singh was the person from Rajputana, another great warrior, an ardent devotee of Shiva, but most trusted lieutenant of Aurangzeb. In fact, when Aurangzeb had to settle score with Dara Shikoh for his actions leading to being non-believer or kafir. It was actually Jai Singh who sided with Aurangzeb. And he helped Aurangzeb in finishing Dara Shikoh. The same Jai Singh actually came to defeat Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. He started his expedition from there, Delhi, Agra. In front of him, he had to surrender 21 forts. He had to accept the humiliating treaty. And in that condition, in this background, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj is writing a letter to Mirza Raja Jai Singh. It's a very lengthy letter, but I will just use 2 quotes. And that's why I refuse to accept that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had a vision only for a Maratha kingdom. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj had a vision for complete independence of this entire nation. And that complete independence was not just political, but cultural, economic, and strategic. And that's why the policy implications that we need to understand post-coronation are very important. But before that, I will just quote 2 paragraphs from his letter to Mirza Raja Jai Singh. In a lengthy letter, he writes, "If you have come to conquer Deccan for yourself, I would prefer to offer my services at your disposal. But since you have come on behalf of Aurangzeb, I am little perplexed how to deal with you. If we both fight, the loss of the Hindus would be from both sides. One would not be considered brave and no heroism in fighting among each other." He adds, "The intention of Aurangzeb is no brave man among the Hindus should survive. The lions should fight among each other and finish off themselves so that the vultures can rule over. You do not understand the strategy of the Mughals. I would appreciate you not to blacken the faces of Hindus by fighting with lions like us. If you have guts, you should attack the enemies of this religion and get rid of them. If Dara Shikoh would have been the ruler of this country, we would have showered love and affection on us. Since you have ditched persons like Jashwant Singh, who cannot distinguish between good and bad, you have been fighting small fries so far, and now since you have to fight lions like me, you would realize where do you stand. You may run after mirage. It is like after making so much of efforts, you can capture a beautiful lady to be handed over to our enemy. Are you such a low-level personality? Do you feel proud earning favors of such rascals? Are you not aware of the outcome of the efforts of Jujhar Singh?" He is clearly targeting the conscience of Mirza Raja Jai Singh. He knew his might. He knew his abilities. He knew he is coming on behalf of Aurangzeb and with his mighty army. And still he is writing this. Even in the same letter he says, "A few Muslims taking over our great country really surprises me, but this has happened not because of their adventures. They talk nicely with us and made us slave if you try to understand. If your eyes can see, you may realize it. We need to realize how they are trying to shackles in our legs and cutting off our heads by our own swords." What Chhatrapati Shivaji taught to our society is to have a Atmabodh, who are we as a nation, and at the same time have a Shatru Bodh, what is the thinking of our enemy. He was very clear about both these ideas, about Atmabodh, the idea of this nationhood, this great ancient civilization, and the Shatrubodh, the mindset and the ideology of the invaders. And therefore, not just after coronation, even before that, most of the Maratha Sardars, Watandars or Zamindars that Vikram Singh ji referred to actually did not side with Chhatrapati Shivaji. In fact, most of the dominant Sardars were with Adil Shahi. His father himself was serving Adil Shahi. It was Jizau, his mother, who instilled these sanskaras of Swaraj and started consciousness about complete independence in this young boy. And that's why at the age of 16, he came up with the idea of founding Swaraj. At the age of, if I'm not wrong, 9, he's perhaps taking an oath with his small friends. That consciousness shows that it was not limited to just ruling one state or one city around Pune. And therefore, what is he trying to do through this idea of Swaraj? What I feel and what I have studied about Chhatrapati Shivaji, either through primary sources or some scholarly writings, one is, first time ever, perhaps after Vijayanagara, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj is trying to give a just system of governance to our own people. And that system is so just. Like one popular example that is always given, he was very particular about protecting the dignity of women. Because it was unheard thing in this civilization that if the enemy is defeated, women of the defeated army are actually picked up, either thrown in haram or sold in some markets of Afghanistan or Persia or Arbistan. This was unheard of as far as Indian civilization was concerned. And that is the reason we see in some parts of India the traditions of Johar or Sati came into existence. Our entire woman folk, which even Yuan Sang or Megasthenes writes about, that I have traveled throughout Europe and Asia, I found India as the only country which was where the kingdoms were governed and effectively administered by women. That was the situation when Megasthenes came. And what we see after 8th or 9th century, because Raja Dahir's daughters were sold by Muhammad bin Qasim, not sold actually, they were gifted to Khalifa. Now this was beyond comprehension for common Indian people. And that's why Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was very particular about protecting the dignity of women. And that's why when one of his trusted lieutenants, nephew, found guilty of robbing the dignity of a woman, he decided to take the most decisive action. When his close lieutenant came to him and requested, please, just pardon him. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj tells, okay, because you are saying, I will not kill him. And the moment he goes, he gives the order to cut his hands and legs and throw him in front of his house. Immediately, the close lieutenant comes back and he asks, Maharaj, you had given me a word that you would not kill him. And Chhatrapati says, yes, I didn't kill him. I have kept him alive to realize his mistake because I had given you the word. But I don't want to give the message to the common people that if you have connection with me, you can get pardon for your relatives. That was the message of governance, first time after centuries the common masses of India were getting. The same is about revenue collection. Each and every letter written by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj to his subordinates talks about being sensitive to the Rayat, the common farmers. Be sensitive to their plight. Don't behave like Mughals. He is giving this warning. The third important thing that Vikram Singh ji made a passing remark about, introduction of governance related terminology in Indian context and Indian languages. Because by then most of the terms were Persians or Arabic. Most of the Indian people were not even aware of those terms. What do they mean? So, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj came up with a Rajya Vyavahar Kosh, a dictionary or glossary of terms related to governance. And I'm trying to look for the authentic reference, but in a secondary source I have read that he perhaps appointed people to interpret his orders and laws in even local languages. Now, people especially coming from Marathi background must be experiencing this in Tamil Nadu, where we also take pride in Marathi identity. In Tamil Nadu there is a Tamil identity. Earlier there was a Telugu identity, original fight that started for a separate statehood from Madras Presidency. I'm quite surprised why before 1940, because 1940 Congress officially came up with the state units based on linguistic identity. In 1920, 1919 Act first time introduced the idea of language as an identity. And Vikram Singh ji gave example of Vyankoji Maharaj. I have challenged this to many historians. Give me a single example in Indian history where people have fought on the basis of languages before independence. It is only after independence we have started fighting on the basis of languages. For us, we were always a multilinguistic nation with a common cultural roots. Language was always an expression of that oneness diversely. So if you ask somebody illiterate in Tamil Nadu, why are you celebrating Pongal? And you ask the same question to somebody in Maharashtra, why do you celebrate Poa or Gudi Padwa? And you ask Assamese, why do you celebrate Bihu? Or ask in Punjabi, why do you celebrate Baisakhi? You will get the similar answers by an illiterate person. Problem is with the literate people or highly educated people, especially English educated people like me. And I'm more distorted because I have studied in JNU. So the ideas that were given by British, we started implementing more after independence. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was one person who realized this threat also. And that's why he had a maritime vision. He realized that perhaps I have created enough consciousness to fight even against Aurangzeb. But in the long run, for all these people he called Turks or Mlencher, while for all the Europeans he called Firang. Topi wale and Firang are greater threats, he writes. Because of those long caps of the European traders. So be aware of them. They are not here just for trading. So if you think in financial terms, in linguistic terms, in governance terms, in strategic terms, he was very clear about his idea of Swaraj. And again I am saying, and this is again beauty of Bharat, a person who do not fight for himself, who do not establish himself, who do not actually do everything for himself or his family, is worshipped even after his death. This is the beauty of Bharat. And therefore, when we are understanding the importance of 350 years of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, we need to understand, and again I am repeating myself, just have a map, global map in front of you and draw the lines. After drawing the line, if you realize that after 5,000 years of recorded history, we are still alive as a civilization with our uniqueness, with our unique vision, and now finding a new way to find a place in the galaxy of nations to guide them. Now, when a country proposes International Day for Yoga, first time ever in the history of United Nations, 177 countries become proposer and then unanimously pass a resolution. Out of those 177 countries, 53 are the countries who probably would have followed Aurangzeb's philosophy of infidels, yoga being infidel, and still they proposed it. That is today possible thanks to the contribution of the idea of Swaraj instilled by Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. And therefore, celebrating coronation was not just a celebration of one event. It is a celebration of an idea that sustained even after a death of a person. Idea that actually has grown multifold even after his death. He made expedition up to Chennai. People in his name went up to Attak and Katak. But followed the same philosophy of not colonizing people, but giving them the sense of selfhood. I think Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and his idea of Swaraj, we need to look beyond the political messaging. The ideology, the idea of that Swaraj was based on Swadharma, Swadeshi, Swabhasha. First time he is asking people, even when this, especially the Portuguese trader coming to him, he says, Why will you build ship for me? You give us the design, we will build ourselves. What is Swadeshi different from this? So that ideas that we find resonation during our freedom struggle against the British, Swadharma, Swadeshi, Swabhasha and Swaraj. Political rule is the culmination of first three, but those three are the foundations for self-rule. Unfortunately, after independence, we have got the self-rule, but we have forgotten first three. We thought that Swaraj is just self-rule. And in that context also, celebrating Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj 350 years of his coronation becomes all the more important. That self, that swa, that allowed us to sustain for centuries together, despite all attempts to eradicate, to annihilate, to finish like dengue, and still we survived. And I don't see more grandeur of Hindu temples that we see in Tamil Nadu than any other part of India. So I believe that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and his legacy is all the more important now, because the colonization that we have faced during the British rule and even after independence, the Islamic onslaught was physical, the European and the British onslaught was mental and psychological, or more intellectual. Some intellectuals coming from our society saying that we were never one nation. Some intellectuals coming within our society saying that there was always north versus south. And that's why re-establishing this idea of Swaraj based on Swadharma, Swadeshi, Bhasha, where diversity is celebrated while inherent unity is realized. That realization, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was great. His coronation was important because he had complete anubhuti of idea of Bharat. That realization, many people talk about research. I don't believe in research. We don't need to research India. We need to realize Bharat. That realization of Bharat, giving approach to that realization was that coronation ceremony. And that's why this, it was a complete, not just the control, but a complete vision about how to do it. That's why Rajya Vyavahar Kosh. That's why appointing people at different places. Otherwise, what was the reason for Mahatma Shinde in 1771 to win over Delhi and still take orders from Shahu Maharaj? He could have easily said, now I have won over Delhi, so I will sit here on the throne. No. राज्य तो छत्रपतींचे आहे. छत्रपतींचे आहे म्हणजे व्यक्तीचे नाही आहे. छत्रपतींचे आहे याचा अर्थ that idea of Swaraj still exists. We are just the protector of it. Every Indian becoming protector and inheritor that idea of Swaraj should be our ultimate goal. That will allow Bharat to realize the ultimate goal that our freedom fighters envision, the idea of Swaraj that Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj envisioned. I think while celebrating 350 years of his coronation, we should take this opportunity to take this sense of duty for protection of Swadharma, Swadeshi and Swabhasha, so that the real objective of Swaraj is realized. If we keep this message, as the Jews used to say, next year in Jerusalem. So Swaraj, we attained independence in 1947, but journey towards complete independence is still going on. That will be complete only when the way India sees the world. We never became great to colonize others, as Sri Aurobindo said. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj also didn't want to be great to colonize others. He wanted to give the idea of righteousness. That idea of dharma should be protected. So that protection of dharma, if we take the message from this program, I believe that we would be really following the legacy of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj and truly commemorating 350 years of his coronation. Thank you very much.